Hi, my name's Eric. Welcome back to my channel. Let's talk once again about Janet Jackson. Today I am going to be reacting to her 1989 album Rhythm Nation 1814 and breaking down the album's lyrics. So far I've reacted to two of Janet's albums, The Velvet Rope and Control, and I plan on reacting to her new album Black Diamond when it comes out later this year. As with The Velvet Rope, this is a long album at 20 tracks, but I don't want to break this video into two parts again, so what I'm going to be doing instead is sort of pairing tracks together to listen to and analyze in a row instead of stopping between every track. Not necessarily under the assumption that they're thematically related, but there are so many interludes on this album that I felt like it would be inefficient to spend a few minutes talking about a track that might just be a few seconds or under a minute long. But anyway, before I dive in, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite Janet Jackson song is. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week and hit the bell icon to be notified when my videos go live. Without further ado, track number 1 is Interlude Pledge, and track number 2 is the title track Rhythm Nation. We've got some church bells, which are kind of ominous.
We are a nation with no geographic boundaries, bound together through our beliefs, pushing toward a world rid of color lines.
Okay, we have this interesting, very 80s synth, kind of reminds me of Blade Runner.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So we have this chorus of voices like people joining together. You can just feel that these are designed to be performed live with like a dance breakdown. Ooh, nice. Wow. Wow, what a great energetic start. So the one thing I did Google about this album before I listened to it was what 1814 meant, and that's the year that the US national anthem was written. So on the opener, she was talking about building a global artistic community to work towards peace, and then the 1814 associates it with the national anthem, so she's saying like, this is our nation, this is our mission, this is our national anthem. And then of course she expands on that on the title track, saying that music is something that can help break color lines and fight injustice. On the chorus we get this group of voices saying, are we looking for a better way of life? And then we get the answer with Janet alone saying, sing. So we have this pretty straightforward formula. We have the problems, the social issues, and then the solution. Sing, make music, make art. So I'm curious to see how she explores these social issues more, and if she gives us a little bit of insight into her own relationship with music. Track 3 is Interlude TV, and track 4 is State of the World.
The homeless problem. Good looks and
Oh, wow, okay.
Empty. Fast money.
violent crimes are on the uprise.
So frustrated.
Of course, right after that, where she has this collage of sounds from TV, from the news, and from like pharmaceutical ads, I immediately get an ad. Oh, wow. Wow, it's interesting that it's such an upbeat song, but the lyrics are so heavy. Oh, how sad. It's such a banger, but like I said, the lyrics are just so heavy. Wow. Okay, we have like the children's voices in the background. Okay. Wow, this bangs really hard. Okay, I wasn't expecting the interludes to line up so nicely with the tracks that they preceded, but so far they are. So the interlude basically was a sound collage depicting different social issues, like violence, homelessness, things like that. And then on State of the World, Janet zooms into a particular story and set of characters that are meant to basically exemplify the impact that these issues have on individual people. On the first verse, it sounds like she talks about a teen mom who sells her body to feed her child, and of course, when she's 15, that's trafficking. And then on the chorus, sort of in a cinematic way, Janet pulls back to show us the broader circumstances that have created the situation. She has this sort of overview shot of a city street that's full of poverty, drugs, crime, and hunger. And then something else that's important to her is how these issues pass from generation to generation. Before, when she would bring up children, it basically amounted to think of the children, but now we actually have a child to think about, little Johnny, who shows up on the second verse. And he, of course, is homeless and bullied for being homeless, which is just especially sad and tragic. So the one moment of respite from this misery, basically, is the bridge when she says, "Can't give up hope now, let's weather the storm together." She paints injustice as hopeless when it's individualized, so of course the solution is in unity, which is a very Janet philosophy. Track 5 is Interlude Race, and track 6 is The Knowledge.
We are in a race between education and catastrophe.
Oh, interesting. Wow, okay. The fact that the songs are upbeat gives the album sort of a light touch that makes these issues accessible. Ooh, fun bass line.
Information keeps us strong. Can hurt you bad. You gotta get yourself in the know with the knowledge. That you really want. What you really want.
This is sort of like a pro-education PSA, but like way cooler. Okay. Ooh, I like where this is going. Strength in numbers. I love the positivity. Positive messages, positive outlook. Okay, very cool. So on the interlude, I thought that she would be talking about race as in racism, but instead she had this image of the race as in education being a race against time. But I'm pretty sure the double entendre in that title was intentional because she started it with a gunshot, and we have this backdrop of the city with all this violence, and so we think that, the gunshot is just another act of violence, but it's the race. So we sort of have basically a nice encapsulation of how trauma shapes our perception of things. Like, imagine someone going from the context of a city street that's full of violence to, a regular foot race where they fire a gun. That's in the back of their mind. So the sort of lasting impact of those few tracks colors the way that we saw something that otherwise was completely innocent. The race against time aspect is, of course, a race against racism and a sort of catastrophic effect that racism can have. And then on Knowledge, she talks about basically people needing an education. On the second verse, she says you won't find knowledge in a pipe, and then talks about lives going up in smoke, which is a pretty clear reference to the crack cocaine crisis of the 80s. And then on the bridge, she lists off some social ills like prejudice, bigotry, and illiteracy. So while a lot of these messages are directed towards Black Americans whose communities were hit especially hard by these issues, she keeps the scope broad. She's not necessarily saying that anyone in particular needs an education, but that information and knowledge is a balm for basically all parts of the equation of oppression. So she's taking on this position of like an educator and I guess like the president of Rhythm Nation, and she's saying that we can replace violence and pain with knowledge and art. Track 7 is Interlude Let's Dance, and track 8 is Miss You Much.
Get the point? Good. Let's dance.
Okay. She's coy about it. Okay. This one's a bit more club ready because it doesn't have that heavy lyrical content. Ooh, we've got a dreamier bridge here. I'm so surprised by how she is balancing such fun music against sort of a backdrop of a lot of emotional pain. So the interlude marked a transition in the story from this global scale to Janet personally in her love life. The song is about her missing her significant other, and that's basically it. But I do think it still fits thematically because what she's talking about here is distance and isolation and loneliness and alienation, which I think is sort of what she had underlying a lot of the social issues she talked about on the prior tracks. You can almost take her longing for her partner as basically like a smaller scale version of the type of longing for human connection she expressed before. She wants connection across geographic boundaries, linguistic boundaries, economic boundaries, racial boundaries, and now she's dealing with that in her private life too. Track 9 is Interlude Come Back, and track 10 is Love Will Never Do Without You. Oh, we have strings. Oh, like a romantic overture here. Huh. This is gonna be a ballad, or it'll transition and do something cool. It's the latter. There it is. This is like a Carly Rae Jepsen euphoric chorus. Gotta love those chimes. Okay, and they're gone. Ooh, this is a fun breakdown. Ooh, got some horns. I think that last track was definitely an album highlight for me because it was just so euphoric, just kept building and building. It was so much fun. So if you're in the mood for some over-analysis, her partner is gone, right? Like her whole thing is she is so lonely without him. And then for the first time on the album, we have a track, that interlude, that doesn't have any vocals, just instruments. And they're these very sad, yearning strings. So the absence of a human touch, of the human voice, basically mirrors the absence of her partner. So then she opens Love Will Never Do with the line, "Our friends think we're opposites." So again, we've got this small scale conflict in her personal life that reflects larger scale conflicts in society. It's this assumption that unalike people just can't be together. And Janet and her partner have modeled a hopeful vision of this struggle. She says whenever there's a problem, we always work it out somehow. The song otherwise is pretty straightforward in its declarations of love, and it's just such a fun track. Track 11 is Living in a World They Didn't Make, and track 12 is All Right.
Children are called the future. They are born with spirits so innocent. We teach them how to hate. Towards the others we become.
Okay.
Doing drugs, doing games to rebel.
Like ways to cope with the world's problems.
This just in. At least 5 people are dead and 30 others wounded
your school playground.
Oh wow, that was Whiplash. Okay. I don't know if I can start vibing it after that. I like that. I honestly really don't know how to feel going from that last song to this one. We've got a long dance breakdown on this one.
Baby.
Okay, two extremely different tracks. On Living in a World, she is back to talking about children and how they are taught prejudice. And the song is basically a message to other adults saying that we need to practice what we preach and model healthier behaviors for our children to help them create a better world. And she seems to connect prejudice with other social ills on the second verse by positing a theory about young people. She says that they confront the problems of the world by doing drugs, joining gangs to rebel. Colors show they belong to the social override. She's saying that when children grow up and inherit the alienation and isolation and pain of the world, they find unhealthy ways to deal with that and to feel like they're part of some sort of unity. So with gangs in particular, it seems like she's suggesting that they are basically a substitute for healthier ways of being involved in your community that's necessitated by a society that makes people islands. And on the outro, she shows us the result of that through that news clip about a mass shooting. She's telling us that's what isolation does. That's the impact that it has on children. And then on All Right, she pivots really hard back to her personal life. She talks about falling in love with her best friend and how great she's feeling, and the sort of whiplash between these two tracks, I think, speaks to the power of the love on the latter track. She says, "Friends come and friends may go. My friend, you're real, I know." There's all this noise, bad friends, a sick world, but our love is strong enough to block all that out. Track 13 is Interlude, Hey Baby, and track 14 is Escapade, which is a song that I've at least heard of, but I've never given it a close listen.
Baby. Hey, baby. Don't get me in here acting silly now. You're not taping this, are you?
Okay, this definitely sounds familiar. This kind of reminds me of Prince. I've got to say, this album has really dramatic emotional highs and lows. That was another really fun song. So that interlude was another classic Janet voice recording, just to sort of flesh out the world of this album a bit more. And then on Escapade, she literalizes the way that love can be an escape from the ills of the world through the idea of an escapade, an escape. So then if love is an escape from the sadness and violence, my question is it an escape, like a distraction, or is it a solution? So then are the love songs on the album a diversion from the songs about social issues? So I'm curious to see, as she gets closer to the end of the album, how she mediates these two aspects of it. Track 15 is Interlude, No Acid, and track 16 is Black Cat.
Ain't no acid in this house.
Different kind of cat. You know, I had heard of her doing a rock-leaning song. I didn't realize it was this one. Nice vocal versatility with that grittiness. Okay. This goes really hard. Was not expecting this at all. Yeah. We've got a cautionary tale here. The interlude was a pun about the genre of music acid house and again another anti-drug message. And then Black Cat is that nice weaving together of the personal and the political that I was looking for. The man she loves is in this world of drugs and violence that she set up on State of the World. So just like that song narrowed in on the story of one family, not just to tell us but to show us the impacts that these types of violence have on the individual, here it's even more impactful because it's from a first-person perspective. It's not a moral fable, but personal testimony. So her reality living in these social, economic, and racial contexts is that she lives in fear of her loved ones getting hurt. Track 17 is Lonely, and track 18 is Come Back to Me. ¿Tenemos español? Again, another opposite of the last track. Yes. Ooh. Ooh. Very dreamy. There's that Janet optimism. Wow. And those strings are back from that one interlude. Okay, so these two tracks together were probably the most similar pair of tracks on the album, but pivoting from Black Cat to those tracks was polar opposites. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of this album is about connections on a personal and social level. And Lonely is the song that addresses that theme most explicitly. So as part of her role as president of Rhythm Nation, she is also the director of the Department of Togetherness. So here she is extending a hand and saying, when you need a friend, I'll be there. Just like she said on Living in a World, we have an individual and collective responsibility to help heal each other and to reach out, and that is exactly what she's modeling on that song. And then we have the mirror image on Come Back to Me, but specifically relating to her love life. She says that her heart has been abandoned, and as you can guess from the title, she is begging her love to come back to her. So between these two songs, we have a sort of reciprocity. People have an inherent need for each other as friends, as partners, as allies. So both songs nicely link the personal and the political again through this idea of interpersonal connection. Track 19 is Someday is Tonight, and the final track, track 20, is Living in Complete Darkness. Is tonight. Yeah. Oh, we've got those strings again. Oh, sounds like a children's choir.
In complete darkness, we are all the same. Don't let your eyes deceive you.
Oh, and we have the bells again from the opener. Oh, And that is how the album ends. So towards the end of the album, she really focused more on her personal story and especially on her relationship. But in particular, Someday Is Tonight does a similar thing to the final track on Charli XCX's most recent album, How I'm Feeling Now. On that album, which I also reacted to, she talks about missing her friends, and then we end the album right in the moment when they're being reunited, but just before she reaches that fulfillment. Here we have the peak of Janet's desire kind of at a similar moment, right as she's about to re-enter her lover's embrace. But we don't quite necessarily get that moment of fulfillment. We don't have a song, a beat in the story that entirely focuses on them reuniting and acting on this longing that they've had for each other. And if the personal parallels the political, it's because her mission of bringing people together is incomplete. Then she closes the album with a chorus of children's voices reminding us that we are responsible for healing the world for them. And it fits nicely because as our time with the album ends, we are ushered into the future by children. And Janet, of course, comes in to remind us of our commonality as people and to give us a warning. Don't let your eyes deceive you. She's saying don't live in the dark, don't be ignorant, accept the knowledge that we are all one people. So overall, I like her perspective on this album. Like I said, she's very optimistic and has a very unifying worldview, which I really appreciate. There were a lot of tracks that I will return to here. I think the use of interludes was really effective too, to flesh out the world of the album between the more pop-oriented tracks. I think she had a really great variety of vocal and instrumental approaches, from the rock leanings of Black Cat to the smooth R&B of the final few tracks. I totally see why that is such an iconic album. So I thank all of you who suggested it. As always, please let me know in the comments down below if you have any other recommendations for music I should react to or topics I should cover in my videos. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are staying safe and healthy. And until next time, that's it.